Hello, good morning. I want to go ahead and get started. We're going to go through how you can create a meal plan that is gut friendly and some of the staples that I like to incorporate personally. I'll give you some hacks and just kind of talk through foods that we want to be incorporating from a gut perspective. And then we don't really have time to walk through in super great detail, but I want to show you a sample gut test, show you the things that I'm looking at, and kind of talk through it as we go. So let me share my screen. Okay, let me get this. All right, so starting with nourishing your gut, talking about how foods and nutrition affect the gut microbes like on an hour by hour, minute by minute basis, which I always think is really cool because that means that the choices that you make now have a pretty immediate effect on the microbes that are growing in the gut. And we know from research that the microbes that are in the gut are literally, I mean, they're center to everything. And we'll talk a little bit about that. It doesn't just play a role in your digestion, it boosts your immunity, overall well-being. That gut-brain connection is significant. So as far as making neurotransmitters and things like serotonin, we need our gut microbes to be the good ones to be growing well. We don't want to be feeding the bad ones, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit through. Talk through today. So, the gut microbiome is our inner ecosystem. There are trillions of microorganisms that live in the gut, which is just mind blowing. Um, it's more than digestion. Like I said, the gut plays a role in every other system. So, having a balanced microbiome supports your ability to absorb nutrients that you eat, supports your immune system. At least 70%. They even say that 70% is pretty low. It's probably more like 85, 90% of our immune defense is in the gut, in that intestinal wall. And we actually look at a number that gives us some information about that on the gut test that I'll show you. And it plays a big role in mood and mental clarity. Even things like hormones and menopause, perimenopause, the gut microbes play a huge role in how all of this works together. So the goal is to have a simple, sustainable eating strategy within our busy lives. I always tell women, like, we are busy. There's never going to be a time that we can just put everything on hold and only do this. So we have to find a way to make it work. And that's what I do a lot of times, like with one-on-one clients, is we're figuring out what works for you. And everyone's different. Everyone has a different lifestyle. Everyone has different food preferences. Everyone has a different gut test and kind of what's going on. So it has to be personalized for every single person. But I want to give you some staples here. So the pillars of a gut-friendly diet would be probiotic-rich foods. Those are going to be fermented foods like cultured yogurt, kefir, kimchi, and sauerkraut. Kimchi and sauerkraut actually have a ton of probiotic, like live active strains, and really are comparable to a lot of, probiotic pills. Um, Sometimes people don't tolerate heavy probiotic foods right off the bat. If there are any of these foods that you feel like you don't tolerate, that means that you have a lot of work to do with your gut. A lot of times it can indicate some overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine if you feel like any of these things make you gas and bloated and that sort of thing. But yogurt, I really like Stonyfield organic Greek yogurt. And for a non-dairy option, I highly recommend the brand Coco June coconut yogurt. Most of the time when I'm walking patients through any sort of, like, if we take out dairy for any period of time, I have them do the coconut milk yogurt, and they actually prefer that to regular yogurt. So Coco June, Siggy's is another good brand. It has a little bit more added sugar. And then if you're doing dairy, Stonyfield organic Greek yogurt, they're all cultured and they're all great from a probiotic standpoint. Prebiotic foods, so these are like fertilizer to the good bacteria. So think of the probiotics are the actual strains. They're what I describe as the garden, and the prebiotics are like fertilizing the garden. So things like asparagus, garlic, onion, leeks, bananas. There's a whole long list, but I usually say asparagus, garlic, and onion. Anytime you can incorporate garlic and onion, like when you're sauteing ground beef for spaghetti or tacos or whatever. Those are great foods to incorporate from a prebiotic standpoint. It really helps feed those good bacterial strains in the gut. And we want lots of those growing because it protects us, it keeps us well, it helps us make things like serotonin, so it keeps us happy. And these things are really significant to these gut microbes. And then fiber. The beneficial gut microbes have to have fiber to survive, and overwhelmingly, the standard American diet is really low in fiber. And even from like a macro standpoint, I work with a lot of women who are doing high protein and nothing seems to be working. And fiber is really essential. You can be hitting macros all day long and still be really deficient in fiber. The goal for females is 25 grams of fiber a day. I have an awesome fiber guide that if any of you are watching the replay and you want a copy of this, I'm happy to send it to you. Just let me know. So yeah, the microbes have to have fiber. So fruits, vegetables, legumes are staples there. So building a gut-friendly plate, focusing on whole foods. So I always like for there to be good protein, but I don't want that to be coming from fake processed protein. So we want to keep protein smoothies or shakes to like 4 or 5 times a week. I don't like for you to be relying on protein bars, protein chips. It's like everything is protein, protein Starbucks drinks. Like, no, that's not helpful. That's not what your body needs. We want protein coming from whole foods. Okay. So the less processed, the best. Fresh produce, lean proteins, healthy fats, that is the foundation. Fermented foods, so adding a serving of yogurt, kefir, kimchi or sauerkraut. You don't need much kimchi or sauerkraut. And I know some people are like, oh, I don't like that, but it really literally only takes a tablespoon. I really enjoy kimchi and sauerkraut with like roast. I'll do a roast in the crock pot with, potatoes and carrots and things like that. My boys love it. And I really enjoy sauerkraut and kimchi in that setting. Variety. So I know that we're busy and I'm really bad about this, but I kind of get my staples and I put them in rotation. But I do want you to challenge yourself to number one, eating seasonally. You're going to get a lot more nutrients from things that are growing locally in your area, like in that season, than when we're eating things from way far away that have to be shipped in, that it's not really seasonal. And remember that we get different benefits from every single color of food that we're eating. So I want you to challenge yourself when you go to the farmer's market, find a local farmer's market, or even if you do go to the store, choose something from like many different colors. You're going to get benefits from that, from every single color. So make sure that you're not only eating the same 10 foods, we do want to have some variety. I want it to be doable. So if putting some things on repeat for a week or two works for you, that's fine. But do keep in mind, like, let's rotate it every few weeks so that we're getting lots of different colors. And then hydration, obviously, water supports digestion, helps fiber do its job effectively. Fiber is not something that you want to go from like eating a tiny bit to eating a ton. So we want to step it up slowly, and you have to be drinking water whenever you do this, or you can end up with, gas, bloating, constipation, that sort of thing. Half your body weight in ounces a day is what I recommend. I'll take a sip of my water right now. So, what are some actionable steps for a healthy gut? Start simple. I do not recommend trying 5 new recipes a week. If you want to try something new, pick one thing, but then have your really easy staples in rotation. Okay, so introduce one new gut friendly food or habit at a time. That helps you not get overwhelmed, not have tons of food in the fridge that then rots or goes to waste. And it really helps you build lasting change. We have to be consistent for a while to really reap the benefits. Okay. Meal prep smart. So I like to cook grains. I like to go ahead and chop vegetables, do a sheet pan of vegetables, overnight oats. And I kind of look at it as like prepping vegetables, prepping protein, prepping starch. So like rice or quinoa, sheet pan of vegetables, meat in the crock pot. It does not have to be complicated recipes with a million different ingredients. It can really be that simple. I highly recommend Lily Eats and Tells. She has a meal plan, which is great, but all of her recipes are amazing. I like to go through and like pick one new thing every like other week. I feel like our sports schedules with the kids are so busy, I can't even do it every week. But try some new thing. My goodness. That was a toy falling out of the toy basket. Try some new things and have your staples, like I said, just kind of in rotation. Listen to your body, pay close attention to how different foods make you feel. And then always, working with someone one-on-one to help talk about hacks for you and things to incorporate that are going to make it easier for you is always really helpful. Remember that the gut is unique. Small, consistent changes are really what lead to lasting improvements over time. Let me get in this sample gut test so I can show you all this. This is actually from a patient. So if y'all have any questions about that, let me know. From a meal planning standpoint, I also really like Hungry Root. There are a few caveats, and I kind of walk clients through that, but they have gut-friendly options. It doesn't require a ton of prep. I like to do it like every other week. I still feel like I can't like totally get it all together every single week. But some of our staples are spaghetti, and I'll always do zucchini noodles or spaghetti squash to have that fiber and like vegetable available. Tacos, most of the time I put it like on a taco salad, roast, chicken and rice. Those are kind of our staples that I have in rotation, and then I'll add new things in kind of periodically. Um, Okay, so this is a sample gut test. I do a test called CSAP, which stands for Comprehensive Stool Analysis and Parasitology. I love this test because it shows us, it gives us a snapshot of the microbiome. So when I'm looking at these tests, I'm looking to make sure that there's lots of good beneficial bacteria growing. This is the garden. This is the stuff that we want growing really well. And so when I look at a test, I want it to be 4+ all the way down the line. You can see on this one, lactobacillus is low, and lactobacillus is really important for immunity and keeping bad stuff out. So I definitely would choose a probiotic that has lots of different lactobacillus families for this patient. And then we look at imbalanced flora. So these are things that aren't necessarily harming the host, but they're not beneficial to the host. So I don't like to see more than two different species here. We're not really trying to see none. I don't want to get into like a situation where we're just chasing different bacteria, but I don't like for it to be growing at 4+, and I don't like to see more than two species. And then the stuff in the red is stuff that is harmful to the host. It's overgrowing. It doesn't need to be there. Citrobacter in particular can cause gluten intolerance, and certain types of Klebsiella are linked to different autoimmune conditions. So with this patient in particular, we really worked on cleaning this stuff up. She had a lot of skin issues and like itching, um, rashes that she was using a lot of creams for that wouldn't go away. And I'll show you at the end of this report, I really like this test in particular because it tells me exactly which natural antimicrobials are going to kill this stuff. And then with yeast, we did see some candida. It should not be there. It's not growing enough that it has come over, spilled over here to the dysbiotic category, but there should not be yeast in the gut, and that will really drive sugar cravings, skin issues, lots of different things like that. We do a full parasitology, and this patient actually did come up with a parasite. We just did a full parasite protocol with her, and her itching and rash is totally gone. I always like to address parasites first and do that protocol, and then we move to cleaning up the bad bacteria that we saw in the yeast, and we do that with natural antimicrobials. We also look at the sample under the microscope. That's where they saw the yeast as well. We look at digestion and absorption. When a patient comes to me with constipation, these are numbers that I really want to look at because this plays a big role in bowel movements. We always look for inflammation to make sure there's no, inflammatory bowel type stuff going on, like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease. And then this is the immune system number that I was talking about, secretory IgA. This number, I like to see it between 100 and 200. You see the range is pretty wide, but this is the after your skin, this is the next line of defense. It's in the intestinal wall, and this is where the majority of the immune system lies. So, we want to make sure that we clean up things like parasites, bad bacteria, and yeast so that this immune system number is not, the immune system isn't constantly having to deal with those things, and it can really stay strong and resilient and protect us. So this number was normal. I would like to see it a little bit higher, and that would come up naturally as a result of cleaning up some of the bad stuff. We wouldn't necessarily do anything specifically about this. Some of the things that you can do just from a food standpoint to help strengthen that intestinal wall are things like collagen, bone broth. Those are really like gelatin. Those are really good things for the intestinal wall. We look at something called short chain fatty acids, which I'm not going to get a lot into, but it has to do with the good bacteria in the gut. They are anti-inflammatory, they protect the colon. And so I always like to look at that. I look at the total short chain fatty acids, and this patient had a pretty good amount. She had decent good bacteria growing. It was just the lactobacillus that was low, so I'm not surprised that this looks pretty good. And this is where they tell us, okay, based on what's growing, what are some of the natural antimicrobials that will get rid of it? We don't want to go the antibiotic route because the antibiotics wipe out the good bacteria. And what happens if you mow your garden? What grows back? It's the weeds. So if we do the antibiotics, we are wiping out the good stuff, which leaves the environment more susceptible to the weeds just growing right back. Um, I use a lot of colloidal silver, a lot of caprylic acid. It really depends on what comes up on this culture as far as what we'll use, and typically we'll rotate several different things. And this is kind of what I walk through with patients one-on-one to really make sure that we clean everything up, get rid of their symptoms, hormone balance. It's really incredible to me how when we get this stuff cleaned up, weight falls off, brain fog goes away. You're not getting sick all the time. The random rashes are better. Even, like autoimmune conditions. It is really incredible and powerful. And the more I work with patients and look at the gut, the more I'm convinced that it is just a big missing piece for a lot of people. So I hope that that is helpful. If you have any questions specifically on what that test tells us, what does it look like to have that testing done? Are you someone who should consider that? Happy to talk to you about that. Did want to just make a quick announcement that next Tuesday, March 31st at 1 p.m., I'm doing a full gut workshop. It's going to be interactive. Would love to see you guys there. You'll walk away with a lot of valuable information. And yes, hope to see you guys then. Have a great rest of your week.